Hashtag Part 1. Gentle opening and preparation. Welcome to your peaceful bedtime journey. Dear Traveler Dreams, tonight, as the world outside grows quiet and still, we shall embark together on a gentle voyage into the enchanted realm of the brothers Grimm, where ancient tales have been waiting patiently to whisper their secrets to your soul. These are not the stories you may remember from childhood, filled with danger and excitement, but rather their deeper essence, transformed into vessels of tranquility and rest. Close your eyes now, if you haven't already, and feel the soft weight of your eyelids as they settle naturally, like autumn leaves finding their place upon the earth. There is no effort required here, no striving or reaching for anything beyond this moment. Simply allow yourself to be exactly where you are, in this comfortable space that cradles you with familiar warmth and safety. Take a breath, deeper than the one before, and as you exhale, imagine releasing not just the air from your lungs, but all the accumulated weight of this day. Every worry, every task left undone, every moment of tension or hurry can simply drift away from you now, carried off in the gentle wind of your breath. You are here, in the sacred space between waking and sleeping, where magic is not only possible but inevitable. Feel your body sinking deeper into whatever surface supports you. Perhaps it's your bed, with its familiar embrace of pillows and blankets. Perhaps it's a comfortable chair that has learned the shape of your body over countless evenings of rest. Wherever you are, allow gravity to do its gentle work, drawing you downward into deeper and deeper states of relaxation. Your shoulders, which have carried so much throughout the day, can finally let go of their burden. Let them drop, settling into a position of complete ease. Your arms, which have reached and grasped and worked so diligently, can now rest at your sides like sleeping rivers, still and peaceful. Feel the muscles in your forearms releasing their grip on the day's activities. Your hands, which have touched and held and created, can now unfurl like flowers opening to the morning sun. Fingers soft and loose, palms open to receive the gift of rest. The air around you is perfect for breathing, neither too warm nor too cool, carrying just the right amount of moisture to make each inhalation feel like a blessing. As you breathe, notice how your chest rises and falls in its own natural rhythm, like gentle waves upon a moonlit shore. There is no need to control this rhythm, no need to make it faster or slower or different in any way. Simply observe it, the way you might watch clouds drifting across an endless sky, knowing that each breath brings you closer to the peaceful state your body naturally craves. In the distance of your imagination, you can perhaps hear the faint echo of church bells, their bronze voices calling softly across valleys and hills, marking the transition from day to night, from activity to rest, from the world of doing to the world of being. These are not urgent bells, not bells that demand attention or action, but gentle bells that bless the coming darkness and all who seek refuge within it. The brothers Grimm, Jacob, and Wilhelm were collectors of dreams made manifest in story. They wandered through German forests and villages, listening to the old women by their hearths, the woodcutters returning from their daily labor, the children playing games that had been passed down through countless generations. They understood that stories were more than entertainment. They were vessels carrying the deepest wisdom of the human heart, containers for truths that could only be spoken in the language of symbol and metaphor. Tonight, we honor their legacy not by retelling their tales exactly as they recorded them, but by allowing their essence to flow through us like water through a riverbed, carving new channels of peace and restoration. These stories they gathered were born around fires much like the warmth you feel now, shared among people who understood that the boundary between waking and dreaming was as thin as spider silk, and just as beautiful when touched by the light of understanding. Imagine now that you are sitting by such a fire, though it burns without heat or smoke, a fire made of pure light and comfort. The flames dance in colors that have no names, hues that exist only in that magical realm between sleep and wakefulness where your mind now dwells. The light from this fire touches your face with the gentleness of a mother's hand, warming you from within rather than from without, kindling a glow in your heart that spreads slowly through your entire being. Around this fire, the air shimmers with possibility. The very atmosphere seems alive with ancient wisdom, pregnant with stories that have been told and retold until they become polished smooth like river stones, each rough edge worn away by the countless tellings, leaving only their essential beauty and truth. These stories know you, dear listener. They have been waiting for you specifically, through all the years and all the nights, patient as stars in their certainty that this moment would come. Your breathing has become even slower now, each inhalation drawing in not just air, but the essence of peace itself. Each exhalation releases not just carbon dioxide, but any remaining fragments of tension or concern. You are becoming lighter with each breath, more transparent, more open to the magic that waits just beyond the threshold of ordinary consciousness. The room around you, whether real or imagined, begins to take on the quality of a sanctuary. The walls seem to breathe with their own gentle rhythm, expanding and contracting almost imperceptibly, as if the space itself were a living thing offering you its protection and comfort. Any sounds in the outside world, the distant hum of traffic, the settling of the house, the whisper of wind through trees, these become not disturbances, but rather a gentle symphony, supporting your journey into deeper states of rest. Feel how your scalp relaxes, releasing any tightness around your temples or behind your eyes. Your forehead smooths itself like still water, erasing the furrows that the day may have carved there. Your jaw unclenches. Allow your mouth to fall slightly open if it wishes, your tongue resting softly against the floor of your mouth like a cat curled up in a patch of sunlight. Your neck, what has held your head high and alert throughout the day, can now allow your head to settle more deeply into whatever supports it. Each vertebra in your spine can release its grip on perfect posture, allowing your back to find its most natural and comfortable curve. You are supported completely, held by forces more reliable than your own effort or vigilance. The stories we will share tonight come from a time when people lived closer to the rhythms of nature, when the setting sun was not just in a daylight, but a sacred transition, a daily reminder that rest and renewal were not luxuries, but necessities written into the very fabric of existence. They understood that sleep was not the absence of consciousness, but a different kind of consciousness, one that opened doorways to wisdom and healing unavailable to the waking mind. As we prepare to enter their world, feel yourself becoming like the heroes and heroines of these ancient tales, not because you must face dragons or overcome impossible odds, but because you possess their most essential quality, the willingness to step across the threshold from the known world into the realm of mystery and transformation. The threshold you cross tonight is the one between wakefulness and sleep, between the busy chatter of the day mind and the deep silence where dreams are born. Your entire body has become a vessel for peace now, filled to the brim with tranquility that seems to glow from within. You are ready to begin our journey, ready to let the ancient voices of story and wisdom guide you deeper into the restorative darkness, where healing happens naturally, where the soul performs its nightly miracle of renewal and restoration. The brothers Grimm knew that the best stories were those that carried their listeners away from the harsh edges of ordinary reality into a softer world where different laws applied, where kindness was always rewarded, where the patient and pure heart always found their way to safety and joy. Tonight, you are both the listener and the hero of such a story, and your quest is the sweetest and most natural quest of all, the journey into peaceful, restorative sleep. Part 2, the Sleepy Village. In a valley so hidden that map makers have never found it, nestled between hills that roll like sleeping giants under blankets of emerald grass, lies a village that exists in perpetual twilight peace. This is not the harsh twilight of endings, but the gentle twilight of transition, where day and night meet and dance together in perfect harmony, creating a light that is neither bright nor dark, but something altogether more magical, the light of dreams made visible. The village has no name that anyone remembers, for names are things of the busy world, and this place has long ago surrendered such concerns to the wind. The people who live here simply call home, and when strangers ask where they are from, they gesture vaguely toward the horizon and say, "From the place where stories sleep." The strangers nod as if they understand, though they never quite remember the conversation afterward, carrying away only a vague sense of having touched something beautiful and peaceful. The streets of this village are paved with stones that have been worn smooth not by the harsh passage of cartwheels and hurried footsteps, but by centuries of gentle walking, of people who move with the unhurried grace of those who have learned that arriving somewhere is less important than the quality of attention you bring to each step of the journey. These cobblestones gleam with a soft luminescence that seems to come from within the stone itself, as if each piece of the road were a captured star, holding just enough light to guide the way without ever causing strain or glare. Between the stones, moss grows in patterns that shift and change when no one is looking directly at them, creating mandalas of green and silver that seem to pulse with their own gentle breathing. When children play hopscotch on these streets, their laughter seems to make the patterns dance more quickly, as if joy were a kind of music that the very ground could hear and respond with its own subtle choreography. The houses that line these streets are built from materials that defy easy description. The walls appear to be made of compressed moonbeams and solidified sighs of contentment, substances that should not exist in the ordinary world, but feel perfectly natural here. Each house is different, shaped not by architectural plans, but by the dreams of those who dwell within. Some are round like giant mushrooms, with roofs that curve down to touch the earth, and doors are just the right size for whoever needs to pass through them. Others rise in gentle spirals, their walls flowing like frozen waterfalls, with windows that appear wherever the light needs to enter and balconies that bloom from the sides of the buildings like architectural flowers. The roofs are perhaps the most remarkable feature of all, for they are living things, not merely covered with plants, but actually grown from seeds of dream grass and slumber moss, materials that exist only here in this twilight realm. These roof gardens change with the seasons, but seasons here are not marked by harsh transitions of weather, but by subtle shifts in the emotional climate of the village. In spring, when hope runs strongest, the roofs bloom with flowers that smell like laughter. In summer, when contentment reigns, they produce fruits that taste like satisfaction itself. Autumn brings leaves that rustle with the sound of old stories being told, and winter covers everything with a snow made of crystallized peace. Windows glow with warm, honey-colored light that spills onto the streets like liquid gold. But this light comes not from harsh electric bulbs or flickering candles, but from the contentment of the families within. The happier the household, the warmer the light that emanates from their windows. And since this is a village where sadness is rare and anxiety unknown, the streets are bathed in a perpetual golden glow that makes every evening feel like the most beautiful sunset that ever was. Through these glowing windows, you can glimpse scenes of perfect domestic tranquility. Families gathered around tables that seem to expand and contract to accommodate exactly whoever needs to be fed. Grandparents sharing stories that make the children's eyes grow wide with wonder. Couples sitting by fires that burn without consuming wood, their flames dancing to the rhythm of contented hearts. The fires in this village are fed not by fuel, but by love itself, and they burn brightest when people gather around them to share their deepest joys and gentlest sorrows. The air in this village carries scents that change as you breathe them, adapting to whatever fragrance will bring you the most peace in any given moment. Perhaps you smell freshly baked bread with a crust so perfect it seems to contain all the comfort of childhood within its golden curves. Perhaps it's the green sweetness of grass after rain, or the vanilla warmth of clean blankets, just taken from the line where they dried in moonbeams instead of sunlight. The air itself seems to know what your soul needs and provides, without being asked, a constant, invisible gift that makes every breath a small meditation on gratitude. Gardens surround each house, but these are not gardens in the ordinary sense. They grow what each household needs most, which might be vegetables for the body, flowers for the spirit, or herbs for dreams that have gone astray and need gentle guidance back to their proper paths. Some gardens grow morning glory that blooms only at twilight, their trumpet-shaped flowers releasing melodies that sound like lullabies hummed by angels. Others cultivate beds of lamb's ear, whose silver-soft leaves seem to whisper reassurances to anyone who brushes against them in passing. In the center of the village stand a well, but the water it contains is unlike any other water in any other place. It is drawn not from underground springs, but from the collective pool of peace that exists in the hearts of all who dwell here. When someone drinks from this well, they taste not just water, but the essence of every kind moment that has ever been shared within the village boundaries, every gentle word spoken, every hand extended in friendship, every lullaby sung to soothe a restless child. Around this well, benches have been carved from single pieces of wood so ancient and wise that they remember when the world was young and all languages were one. People gather here not to gossip or conduct business, but simply to be together in comfortable silence, watching the stars reflect on the well's surface and feeling their individual worries dissolve into the larger ocean of communal tranquility. The baker's shop sits at the corner where two of the most traveled streets meet, though traveled is perhaps the wrong word for roads where no one ever hurries. The shop itself seems to have grown from the earth rather than been built upon it. its walls curving upward like the inside of a giant acorn, its chimney twisting skyward in a spiral that releases smoke which smells of cinnamon and contentment. The smoke never dissipates, but rather forms gentle clouds that drift through the village streets, carrying the promise of nourishment and the certainty that someone, somewhere, is always tending to the needs of the community. Inside this bakery works a woman whose name is Gretel, though she is not the Gretel of the fearsome tale you may remember. This Gretel has never known hunger or abandonment, never faced a witch or a house made of dangerous sweets. This Gretel exists in a reality where bread never burns, where ovens warm hearts instead of threatening lives, where every loaf emerges golden and perfect, containing not just flour and yeast, but the baker's intention that all who eat it will be nourished in body and soul. Gretel moves through her work with the fluid grace of someone who has found their perfect place in the world. Her hands know the dough so well that she needs no measuring cups or timers. She can feel in her fingertips exactly how much kneading is needed, can sense in the texture of the mixture when it has reached that perfect balance of elements that will allow it to rise into something greater than the sum of its parts. When she works, she hums melodies that have no words but convey meanings deeper than language, songs of gratitude for grain and sunshine, of appreciation for the ancient alchemy that transforms simple ingredients into sustenance, of joy in the daily miracle of creating something beautiful and useful with her own two hands. Her bakery becomes a kind of heart for the village, pumping the lifeblood of nourishment through the community's arteries. But the bread she makes feeds more than bodies. It satisfies hungers that have no name, longings that cannot be articulated but are nonetheless real. People emerge from her shop with their arms full of loaves and their hearts full of something indefinable but necessary, as if along with their daily bread they have purchased a small portion of hope, a helping of human kindness, a serving of a certainty that they are cared for and valued. Each evening, as the already gentle light begins to soften even further, Gretel tends to her garden behind the bakery. This garden grows all the things a baker might need: rosemary for remembrance, thyme for courage, lavender for peace. But it also grows things that exist nowhere else in any world, herbs that season dreams and flowers that bloom only for those who have learned to find magic in the mundane. She moves among her plants with the same intuitive knowledge she brings to her baking, knowing without being told which flowers need water and which need only the gentle touch of her hand, which herbs are ready for harvesting and which need more time to develop their full potency. As she works in her garden, the setting sun paints the sky in shades that have no names but evoke feelings of perfect contentment. The light filters through the leaves of her garden plants, creating patterns of shadow and illumination that shift and dance like living things. And Gretel finds herself moving in harmony with these patterns, her own shadow becoming part of the garden's gentle choreography. Tonight, as every night, she will finish her gardening just as the first stars begin to appear, and she will stand for a moment in the doorway between her garden and her bakery, breathing in the mingled scents of herbs and flowers, feeling the satisfaction of work well done and rest well earned. And then, as the village settles into its nightly rhythm of peace, she will begin preparing for tomorrow's bread, mixing her intention for health and happiness right along with flour and salt, ensuring that when morning comes, the village will wake to the smell of fresh baking and the certainty that they are loved. Part 3. The Enchanted Forest Walk. As the twilight deepens into something even more peaceful than evening, Gretel feels a gentle pull that comes to her each night at this hour, a whisper in her heart that calls her away from the warm circles of lamplight and into the embrace of the forest that surrounds the village like a protective parent's arms. This is not a compulsion born of restlessness or dissatisfaction, but rather the natural movement of someone who has learned to listen to the subtle rhythms that govern all peaceful existence, the rhythm that calls flowers to close their petals at dusk, that draws birds to their roosting places, that invites the soul to seek communion with the deeper mysteries that can only be found away from human habitation. In the ancient spaces where trees have grown wise through centuries of patient observation, she closes the door to her bakery with the reverence of someone completing a sacred ritual, her hand lingering on the smooth wooden surface as she whispers a quiet blessing of gratitude for the day's work and protection for the building through the night. The door seems to understand her intent, settling into its frame with a soft sigh of contentment, as if it too is ready for rest and renewal. The path that leads from the edge of the village into the forest is not marked by any signpost or obvious entrance, but Gretel knows it as well as she knows the lines of her own palm. It begins where the cobblestones gradually give way to earth that feels softer underfoot, where the houses thin out until only their warm window light remains visible through the gathering dusk, flickering like earthbound stars among the trees. This transition from human habitation to forest realm happens so gradually that one could walk it for many minutes before realizing that the world has fundamentally changed around them, that they have crossed from one kind of reality into another altogether. The trees that mark the forest beginning are ancient beyond measure, their trunks so wide that it would take a dozen people holding hands to encircle them, their bark worn smooth by countless seasons of wind and rain into surfaces that feel like polished stone beneath the touch. These trees are not merely old. They are repositories of memory, holding within their rings the accumulated wisdom of centuries, the knowledge of every storm weathered, every spring celebrated, every winter survived. As Gretel passes between them, she can almost hear the whispered conversations they carry on among themselves, discussions in a language older than human speech, filled with observations about the patterns of growth and rest that govern all living things. The path beneath her feet is carpeted with moss so soft and thick that each step feels like walking on the surface of a green cloud. This moss has never known the harsh press of heavy boots or the rutted passage of wagon wheels. It has been shaped only by the gentle footsteps of those who come here seeking peace, and it responds to such treatment by growing ever softer, ever more welcoming, as if gratitude could be expressed through the very texture of the earth itself. As she walks deeper into the forest, Gretel notices how her breathing automatically adjusts to match the rhythm of her footsteps, how her heartbeat slows to harmonize with the gentle pulsing of life that seems to emanate from every tree, every fern, every flower that nods along the pathway. She is not consciously trying to synchronize with the forest's rhythm. Rather, it happens naturally. The way two pendulums placed near each other will eventually begin to swing in unison, drawn by forces too subtle to name but too powerful to resist. The light in this forest is unlike any other light in any other place. During the day, it filters down through layers upon layers of leaves and streams so gentle they seem almost solid, creating columns of illumination that shift and dance as the branches move in breezes too soft to be felt at ground level. But now, as evening deepens toward night, the light takes on an even more magical quality, seeming to emanate not from above but from within the forest itself, as if every leaf and flower and blade of grass contain its own small lantern, glowing with the accumulated peace of all who have ever walked these paths in search of tranquility. Fireflies begin to appear as Gretel ventures deeper into the forest, but these are not ordinary fireflies. Their light pulsates in perfect synchronization, creating waves of gentle illumination that flow through the forest like visible music, like the visual representation of a lullaby being sung by the trees themselves. They seem to recognize her as a kindred spirit, these creatures of light and air, and they begin to follow her path, not clustering around her in a way that might feel intrusive, but rather creating a loose constellation of moving stars that provides just enough light to guide her steps while never overwhelming the eyes or disturbing the essential peacefulness of the journey. The path begins to descend gradually, winding through groves where different types of trees have gathered as if for conversation. Here, silver birches stand in circles like friends sharing secrets, their pale bark catching and reflecting the firefly light until they seem to glow from within. Their ancient oaks spread their branches wide, creating natural cathedrals with arched ceilings formed by interlacing branches, spaces so sacred feeling that even a walk through them seems like a form of prayer. In one such grove, Gretel pauses beside a spring that bubbles up from somewhere deep beneath the earth, its water so clear that it seems to be made of liquid starlight rather than ordinary water. The spring creates a small pool no larger than a wash basin, but its water is in constant gentle motion, creating ripples that catch the firefly light and transform into ever-changing patterns on the water's surface. She kneels beside this pool and cups some of the water in her hands, bringing it to her lips to taste water so pure and sweet that it seems to carry the essence of every raindrop that has ever fallen on clean leaves, every dewdrop that has ever sparkled on morning grass. As she drinks, she feels the water's coolness spreading through her entire body, bringing with it a sense of cleansing that goes deeper than physical thirst, a purification that seems to wash away not just the day's accumulated fatigue, but any lingering traces of worry or hurry that might still cling to her consciousness like dust. The water seems to understand exactly what kind of refreshment her soul needs in this moment, and it provides that refreshment with the generous precision that characterizes all the gifts offered by this magical forest. Rising from beside the spring, Gretel continues her journey deeper into the woods, following a path that seems to know where she needs to go better than she does herself. The trees grow closer together here, but not in a way that feels confining. Rather, their proximity creates a sense of intimacy and protection, as if she were walking to the halls of a vast green mansion where every room has been designed for contemplation and rest. Flowers bloom along the path's edges, but these are flowers that exist nowhere else in any world, blossoms that seem to be made of crystallized moonlight and compressed whispers, petals that release fragrances capable of evoking specific peaceful memories. The smell of her grandmother's quilt, the scent of rain on warm stones, the fragrance of bread baking in an oven where love is the most important ingredient. She does not need to bend down to smell these flowers. Their perfume finds her naturally, surrounding her with aromatherapy perfectly calibrated to her individual needs for comfort and calm. Above her head, the branches form a canopy so thick and protective that no harsh weather could ever penetrate it, yet so delicately woven that every leaf seems placed with intentional artistry, creating patterns of shadow and filtered light that shift constantly, but always maintain perfect balance, never creating spaces too bright or areas too dark, but rather sustaining a gentle twilight that soothes the eyes and calms the mind. Small animals move through this forest, but they are creatures of peace rather than wildness, beings that have never known fear or hunger or the need to hunt or flee. Rabbits hop along the path ahead of Gretel, their movements unhurried and their eyes bright with curiosity rather than caution. Deer graze in clearings, their coats gleaming with an inner light that makes them seem like living sculptures carved from precious metals. Birds perch on low branches, not singing the territorial songs or mating calls that characterize birds in the ordinary world, but rather humming gentle melodies that seem designed specifically to accompany peaceful evening walks, songs that rise and fall with the rhythm of walking feet and breathing lungs. As the path winds deeper into the forest, Gretel begins to notice that her sense of time is changing, becoming more fluid, less urgent. Minutes and hours lose their harsh boundaries, becoming instead like colors that blend gradually into one another, creating a temporal experience that feels more like floating than walking, more like dreaming than being awake. She has no sense of how long she has been walking, but this lack of temporal awareness does not create anxiety. Instead, it brings a profound sense of freedom, the liberation that comes from stepping outside the artificial constraints of schedule and deadline into a realm where the only clock is the natural rhythm of her own peaceful heart. The forest floor begins to rise and fall in gentle undulations, creating a landscape that feels like walking across the chest of some vast, benevolent sleeping giant whose breathing creates the small hills and valleys through which the path meanders. Each rise in the path offers a new perspective on the forest's beauty, revealing distant groves where different types of magical trees gather, clearings where moonlight pools like liquid silver, streams that wind through the landscape like ribbons of liquid music. With each step deeper into this enchanted realm, Gretel feels herself becoming lighter, more transparent, as if the forest's peace were gradually dissolving whatever in her was solid and separate, allowing her to become more like the fireflies that dance around her, more like the gentle breezes that stir the leaves above her head, more like the soft light that illuminates her path without ever demanding attention or creating harsh shadows. The path begins to curve in a great gentle spiral, leading her around and around, but always deeper, always towards some destination that she cannot see but can feel calling to her from the forest's heart, a place of such perfect peace that even to approach it requires this gradual preparation, this gentle dissolving of the boundaries between self and world, between walker and path, between the seeker and that which is sought. Part 4, The Wise Woman's Cottage. At the heart of the forest, where all paths eventually lead though none seem to point directly toward it, stands a cottage so perfectly harmonized with its surroundings that at first glance it appears to be not a human dwelling, but rather a natural formation, as if the earth itself had dreamed of comfort and shelter and shaped this sanctuary from its own loving intentions. The walls rise from the forest floor like extensions of the living rock beneath, constructed from stones that have been worn smooth not by harsh weather, but by centuries of gentle rain, and the soft touch of moss and lichen that cover them in patterns of emerald and silver, creating a surface that seems to breathe with its own quiet life. These are not ordinary stones quarried from some distant place and hauled here by labor and sweat, but rather stones that chose to gather in the spot, drawn by the same mysterious forces that bring certain people together in friendship, certain words together in poetry, certain moments together in perfect harmony. Each stone fits so perfectly with its neighbors that no mortar was needed to bind them, their surfaces having been shaped by time and intention into complementary curves that embrace each other with the natural grace of lovers' hands or the interlocking fingers of prayer. The mortar between the stones, where any exists at all, seems to be made from crystallized morning mist and the dust of wishes that have come true, substances that should not be able to hold stones together, but somehow create bonds stronger than any cement could provide. This mortar glows with a soft luminescence that shifts through subtle variations of pearl and cream and the palest gold, providing just enough light to make the cottage visible in the gathering darkness without ever creating harsh shadows or glaring brightness. The roof grows rather than rests upon the walls, formed from living moss so thick and soft that it seems more like a green blanket tucked lovingly around the cottage's shoulders than any traditional covering. This moss has never known drought or harsh weather, sustained by some source of moisture and nutrients that flows from the cottage itself, as if the building were a living thing capable of nurturing the plants that protect it. Tiny flowers bloom throughout the moss roof in patterns that change with the seasons and the phases of the moon, creating ever-shifting mandalas of color that tell stories to those who know how to read the ancient language of growing things. From this living roof rises a chimney unlike any other, spiraling upward in a gentle helix that seems to dance as it rises, its stones gradually decreasing in size until the top appears to dissolve into the night air rather than ending in any abrupt termination. The smoke that emerges from this chimney is not the harsh gray product of burning wood or coal, but rather a gentle vapor that smells of herbs and contentment, carrying with it the essence of every peaceful moment that has ever occurred within the cottage walls. This aromatic smoke does not dissipate, but instead spreads to the forest like a blessing, touching every tree and flower with its fragrance of home and safety and unconditional welcome. The windows of the cottage appear wherever they are needed rather than in any predetermined architectural plan, shaped like gentle eyes that open in the walls when someone inside desires a view of the forest or when someone outside needs to see the warm light within. These windows are glazed not with ordinary glass, but with something that might be crystallized laughter or solidified sighs of contentment, materials that allow light to pass through while filtering out anything harsh or disturbing, so that the view from inside is always of the forest at its most beautiful, and the view from outside is always a home at its most welcoming. The door stands exactly where it should, though no two visitors ever agree on where that might be, for the door appears in a place that feels most natural to each individual approach. For some, it faces a path. For others, it opens onto a small garden. For still others, it seems to emerge in the cottage's side wall, or even for what appeared to be solid stone until the moment they needed an entrance. The door itself is made from what's so old and wise that it remembers when the forest was young, carved with symbols that shift and change depending on who looks at them, always showing exactly the message of welcome and blessing that each visitor most needs to see. As Gretel approaches this remarkable dwelling, her footsteps slow naturally, not from hesitation, but from the same reverence that causes people to lower their voices in sacred spaces, to move more carefully in the presence of something precious and fragile and powerful. The very air around the cottage feels different, thicker with peace, more luminous with possibility, as if the simple act of creating a space dedicated to wisdom and healing had somehow altered the fundamental nature of reality in its immediate vicinity. Before she can knock or call out a greeting, the door opens as if it had been waiting specifically for her arrival at precisely this moment. The movement is so gentle and natural that it seems less like the opening of a barrier and more like the unfolding of a flower or the dawn breaking over a distant hill, a gradual revelation rather than a sudden change of state. Light spills from the doorway, but it is not the bright light of day or the flickering light of fire, but rather something altogether more magical. The light of understanding made visible, the illumination that comes from perfect compassion and infinite patience. In the doorway stand a woman whose age cannot be determined by any ordinary measure, for she seems to contain within herself all the ages she has ever been and all the wisdom she has ever gathered. Her hair flows around her shoulders like liquid starlight, sometimes appearing silver, sometimes seeming to hold all the colors of dawn, sometimes looking like spun moonbeams that have learned to hold their shape despite having no substance. Her eyes are the deepest blue that has ever existed. Blue like the ocean at its most profound depths. Blue like the sky at the moment between day and night, when both sun and stars are visible simultaneously. Her face bears a kind of beauty that has nothing to do with youth or symmetry, but everything to do with the accumulated grace that comes from a lifetime of choosing kindness over hardness, understanding over judgment, love over fear. Her skin seems to glow with its own gentle light, as if happiness and wisdom have been absorbed so completely into her being that they become visible, radiating outward like warmth from a perfectly tended fire. She wears robes that appear to be woven from twilight itself, garments that shift between purple and deep blue and silver, fabrics that seem to contain their own gentle movement even when she stands perfectly still, as if the very cloth were alive and breathing. These robes do not rustle or whisper as ordinary fabric might, but instead seem to create their own subtle music, harmonies so soft they can barely be heard, melodies that resonate not in the ears but directly in the heart. "Welcome, dear child," she says, and her voice is exactly what Gretel's soul has been waiting to hear without knowing it was waiting. A voice like honey pour over silk, like wind through leaves, like water flowing over smooth stones, like all the most beautiful sounds in nature woven together into human speech. The words carry more than their literal meaning. They convey absolute acceptance, unconditional love, perfect understanding of every burden Gretel has ever carried and every joy she has ever known. "I have been waiting for you," the wise woman continues, though Gretel has no memory of making any appointment or sending any message announcing her arrival. Yet somehow these words do not surprise her, for this entire journey has had the quality of destiny about it. The sense of following a path that was always meant to be walked, of arriving at a destination that has always been waiting patiently for the right moment of approach. The woman's gesture of invitation is so graceful it seems like a form of dance, her hand moving in an arc that somehow encompasses not just a doorway, but the entire cottage, the forest beyond, and perhaps even a whole universe of peace and safety that her presence creates around her. As Gretel steps across the threshold, she feels a sensation like walking into an embrace, like being wrapped in the softest blanket ever woven, like coming home after a journey so long she had forgotten what home felt like. The interior of the cottage defies any conventional understanding of space and dimension. From the outside, it appeared to be a modest dwelling, perhaps 2 or 3 rooms at most, but inside it seems to contain infinite possibility. Rooms opening onto other rooms in arrangements that shift and flow like water, spaces that expand or contract depending on what kind of experience is needed in any given moment. The walls breathe with their own gentle life, expanding and contracting in rhythm with the cottage's inhabitants, creating an environment that feels more like being inside a living creature than inside a building. The main room where Gretel finds herself is simultaneously cozy and vast, intimate and expansive, containing elements that should not be able to exist in the same space, but somehow create perfect harmony together. A fireplace dominates one wall, but the fire that burns or consumes nothing and produces no smoke, being made instead from crystallized warmth and solidified contentment. Flames that dance in colors that exist only in a realm between waking and sleeping, between conscious thought and peaceful dreams. Around this magical fire, chairs arrange themselves as needed, seeming to grow from the cottage floor when someone requires a place to sit, and dissolving back into potential when no longer needed. These chairs are not carved from wood or crafted from any ordinary material, but rather formed from concentrated comfort, shaped from the essence of every peaceful moment of rest that has ever been experienced, upholstered with contentment itself. The wise woman moves through the space with the fluid grace of someone who has learned to live in complete harmony with her environment, her steps so light they barely disturb the air, her presence so naturally peaceful that being near her feels like being touched by a gentle breeze on the most perfect spring morning. She gestures toward a chair that materializes beside the fire, and as Gretel settles into its embrace, she feels her body releasing tensions she did not know she was carrying, relaxing into deeper levels of ease than she had ever imagined possible. "You must be thirsty after your journey," the wise woman says, though Gretel's walk through the forest felt more like floating than any exertion that might create thirst. Yet as soon as the words are spoken, Gretel realizes that she is indeed thirsty, not for ordinary water, but for something her soul has been craving without knowing how to name that craving, something that exists only here in this place, where impossible things become natural and magical things become simply the way life is meant to be lived. Hashtag Part 5, the Magical Garden of Rest. The wise woman leads Gretel through the cottage to a door that stands open to reveal what should be impossible within the constraint of ordinary reality. A garden that exists simultaneously inside and outside the dwelling, a space that is both enclosed and infinite, intimate and boundless. As they cross the threshold, the air itself seems to shimmer with transformation, carrying Gretel from the warm interior of the cottage into an outdoor space that feels like stepping into the most beautiful dream ever dreamed. A garden that exists not just in physical space, but in the realm of pure possibility, where every plant that grows serves not just the needs of the body, but the deepest longings of spirit. This garden stretches beyond the eye's ability to perceive its boundaries, rolling away in gentle undulations that create pockets of different energy and atmosphere, each area dedicated to a different aspect of peace and restoration. The paths that wind through this magical landscape are not made of stone or earth, but seem to be formed from crystallized moonlight that has learned to maintain its shape while still glowing with the gentle luminescence of its celestial origin. These paths are worn beneath bare feet, pulsing with a rhythm that matches the walker's heartbeat, leading visitors naturally toward whatever experience their souls most need in any given moment. The first area that Gretel encounters is dedicated to the cultivation of moon blossoms, flowers that exist only in this magical realm, and only during the hours when the ordinary world sleeps. These blossoms grow on vines that seem to be spun from silver thread and shadow, their stems so delicate they appear to be made of solidified whispers, yet strong enough to support blooms of extraordinary size and beauty. The flowers themselves are unlike anything that grows in earthly gardens, their petals appearing to be crafted from the substance of dreams themselves, translucent and opalescent, shifting between shades of pearl and lavender and the palest blue, colors that seem to exist at the very edge of visibility, just barely substantial enough to be perceived, yet beautiful enough to bring tears of wonder to the eyes of those who gaze upon them. As night deepens, these moon blossoms begin to open with movements so slow and graceful they can barely be detected, each petal unfurling with the deliberate reverence of a prayer being offered to the darkness. As they open, they release a gentle mist that carries with it the essence of every peaceful dream that has ever brought comfort to a troubled sleeper, every vision of beauty that has ever soothed a worried mind, every nocturnal journey that has ever carried someone from the harsh edges of daily reality into the soft embrace of restorative sleep. This mist does not dissipate, but rather gathers and flows through the garden like a living thing, following paths of its own choosing, seeking out anyone whose spirit needs a particular kind of healing that comes from breathing in the concentrated essence of peaceful dreams. When Gretel walks among these blossoms and breathes their ethereal fragrance, she feels a loosening deep within her consciousness, as if not to worry she didn't know she was carried were being gently untied, as if locked doors in her mind were opening to reveal rooms full of tranquility and rest. Adjacent to the moon blossoms grows a grove of sleep roses, but these are roses transformed by magic into something far beyond their earthly cousins. These flowers grow without thorns, for nothing in this garden is capable of causing harm or drawing blood or creating any kind of pain. Instead, where thorns might have grown, these roses develop tiny crystals of compassion, small formations that catch and reflect light in ways that create miniature rainbows, spectrum upon spectrum of color that dance and shift as breezes move through the garden, creating a constant, gentle light show that soothes the eyes and calms the nervous system. The petals of these sleep roses are soft beyond description, softer than the finest silk, softer than the touch of a loving parent's hand on a fevered forehead, softer than the first snowfall of winter settling on still waters. When touched, they do not bruise or tear, but instead seem to absorb the contact, becoming even softer, as if the gentle pressure of fingers activated some magical property within them that enhanced their capacity to provide comfort and solace. The fragrance of these roses carries the power to slow time itself, or at least to slow the perception of time in anyone who inhales their perfume deeply enough. Minutes stretch into hours of contentment, allowing the mind to release its grip on urgency and deadline, permitting consciousness to settle into the natural rhythms that govern all peaceful existence. This is not the heavy, drugging scent that forces sleep, but rather the gentle invitation to let go of the need to be constantly vigilant, constantly active, constantly moving towards some future goal, and instead to sink in the profound satisfaction of simply being present in this moment of perfect beauty and absolute safety. Beyond the grove of sleep roses, twilight lilies grow in perfect spirals, their arrangement creating labyrinthine patterns that draw the eye into gentle contemplation, paths of visual meditation that lead the observer deeper and deeper into states of peaceful awareness. These lilies glow with their own internal light, not the harsh brightness of electric illumination, but something far more subtle and soothing, a purple radiance that seems to emanate from some source deeper than the physical petals, as if each flower were a window opening onto a realm of pure peace, a glimpse into the very essence of tranquility itself. The light from these twilight lilies does not remain constant, but pulses gently, brightening and dimming in slow waves that seem synchronized with the breathing of everyone who walks among them. This synchronized pulsing creates a kind of visual lullaby, a rhythm of light and relative darkness that encourages the observer's own breathing to slow and deepen, that invites the heartbeat to settle into calmer patterns, that guides the entire nervous system toward states of profound relaxation and restoration. As Gretel moves through the section of the garden, she finds her steps naturally adjusting to match the rhythm of the lily's gentle pulsing, her movement becoming a kind of walking meditation. Each footfall placed with deliberate mindfulness, each shift of weight from one foot to the other performed with a careful attention, usually reserved for sacred rituals. The path beneath her feet seems to respond to this mindful movement, becoming even softer, even more welcoming, as if the garden itself were rewarding her respectful approach with increased comfort and support. In another area of the garden, dream lavender grows in neat rows that stretch away toward distant horizons, each plant perfectly spaced to create channels of air that carry the plant's essential oils and gentle currents throughout the garden. This lavender is not the ordinary herb known to earthly gardens, but a magical variety that has absorbed centuries of peaceful thoughts and contented sighs, dreams of safety and visions of beauty. Every wish for rest and restoration that has ever been whispered into the night air by someone seeking comfort and peace. When the evening breeze moves through these rows of dream lavender, it carries with it not just fragrance, but actual feelings of calm and contentment, emotions made tangible and breathable, peace transformed from abstract concept into something that can be absorbed directly through the lungs and into the bloodstream. From their spreading throughout the body like medicine that heals not illness, but the deeper wound of disconnection from tranquility that affects so many in the busy, rushing world. Beyond this magical garden, scattered throughout all these sections of the garden are beds of what the wise woman calls slumber moss, a ground cover that serves as both carpet and cushion for anyone who wishes to rest among the flowers. This moss is so soft that lying upon it feels like floating on the surface of the gentlest cloud, supported without pressure, cushioned without confinement, held in an embrace that provides perfect comfort without any sense of being trapped or restricted. The moss seems to know exactly what temperature will be most soothing to each individual who rests upon it, warming itself slightly for those who tend to feel cold, cooling itself gently for those who prefer cooler temperatures, maintaining perfect climate control through some magical sensitivity to the needs and preferences of each visitor. It also seems to possess the ability to conform itself to the exact contours of each resting body, creating personalized comfort that supports every curve and hollow, every joint and limb, in the precise configuration needed for maximum relaxation. As Gretel walks through this extraordinary garden, she begins to notice changes in her own physical being that go far beyond simple relaxation. The tension she has carried in her shoulders for so long that she had forgotten it begins to dissolve like morning mist touched by sunlight. The tightness around her eyes, the unconscious bracing in her jaw, the subtle holding patterns in her back and hips, all these begin to release as the garden's influence seeps into her body through every sense, every breath, every moment of contact with this realm of perfect peace. The wise woman walks beside her through all of this beauty, her presence adding another layer of comfort and safety to an already perfectly safe environment. She moves with the fluid grace of someone who has spent countless years learning to live in harmony with growing things, her steps so light they disturb neither plant nor pathway, her breathing so peaceful it seems to enhance the garden's own atmosphere of tranquility. Each plant in this garden, the wise woman explains in her voice like honey and silk, grows not just in soil but in the accumulated love and care of all who have tended it. Every flower blooms with the intention of bringing peace to troubled hearts. Every leaf unfurls with the purpose of providing comfort to weary souls. This garden knows you, dear child, knows what your spirit needs for healing and restoration, and offers those gifts freely without condition, without limit, without any requirement except that you open yourself to receive what is given. As they complete their circuit of the garden, returning toward the cottage through paths that seem to shift and flow like gentle rivers, carrying them inevitably back towards shelter and warmth, Gretel feels herself transformed by the experience, her very cells saturated with the peace that permeates this magical space. Her consciousness expanded to include not just her individual awareness, but some portion of the garden's own infinite tranquility. Hashtag Part 6, the Pool of Peaceful Dreams. At the very heart of the magical garden, where all the pathways of crystallized moonlight eventually converge like streams flowing toward a common source, lies a pool so perfectly still and clear that it seems less like a body of water and more like a window into some deeper realm of existence, a portal that opens onto the very essence of peace itself. This pool exists in a circular clearing where no shadows ever fall, where the light that illuminates the water comes not from any external source, but from within the pool itself, as if the water had absorbed and concentrated all the gentle illumination from the moon blossoms, all the purple radiance from the twilight lilies, all the soft glow from the sleep roses, and woven them together into something that transcends ordinary light, becoming instead the visible manifestation of tranquility itself. The pool is perfectly circular, its edges defined not by stone or earth, but by what appears to be crystallized silence, a material that exists nowhere else in any realm, formed from the accumulated quiet of all the peaceful moments that have ever occurred within this garden. This border rises just barely above the level of the surrounding moss, creating the gentlest possible boundary between the terrestrial garden and the aquatic mystery at its center, a transition so subtle that one could step from land to water without any sense of crossing a threshold, moving seamlessly from one element to another, as if both were equally natural settings for human presence. The water itself defies description through ordinary language, for it possesses qualities that water in the physical world cannot contain. It is simultaneously perfectly transparent and somehow luminous, clear enough to reveal every detail of the pool's bottom, yet filled with a light that seems to emanate from every molecule, creating an effect like looking into liquid starlight or melted moonbeams that have learned to maintain their radiance while taking on the fluid properties of water. The surface remains absolutely still, unmarked by even the gentlest breeze, as if the air above the pool were as peaceful as the water itself, creating a perfect mirror that reflects not just the garden around it, but somehow also the inner landscape of anyone who gazes into its depths. As Gretel approaches this remarkable pool, guided by the wise woman's gentle presence beside her, she notices that her footsteps automatically slow, then stop entirely, while she is still several paces away from the water's edge. Something about the pool's perfect stillness seems to require a moment of respectful pause, a recognition that she stands in the presence of something sacred, something that has taken centuries or perhaps millennia to achieve this level of absolute tranquility and should not be approached with anything less than complete reverence and mindful attention. The wise woman moves to stand beside her, and together they observe the pool in comfortable silence, breathing in air that seems to have been purified by its proximity to this source of ultimate peace. The atmosphere around the pool carries a quality of profound quiet that goes beyond mere absence of sound, creating instead a positive presence of silence, a fullness of peace that fills the space around them with invisible comfort, wrapping them in a blanket of absolute safety and unconditional acceptance. This, the wise woman says in a voice so soft it seems to merge with the gentle sound of their breathing, is the pool of peaceful dreams, where all worries dissolve and only serenity remains. Its waters come not from any earthly spring, but from the collective peace of all who have ever found true rest. Every moment of perfect contentment that has ever been experienced, every sigh of satisfaction that has ever been released, every dream that has ever brought healing instead of disturbance, comfort instead of fear, restoration instead of agitation. As she speaks, the wise woman gestures toward the water with a movement so graceful it seems like a form of prayer, her hand tracing patterns in the air that somehow enhance the pool's natural radiance, causing the water to glow more brightly for a moment before returning to its previous state of gentle illumination. The gesture seems to awaken something within the pool, or perhaps to awaken something within Gretel that allows her to perceive qualities of the water that were always present but previously beyond her ability to observe. The pool shows each visitor exactly what they most need to see, the wise woman continues. Her words carried on breath so peaceful it seems to enhance the garden's atmosphere of tranquility simply by being spoken. For some, it reveals visions of perfect rest, Images of themselves sleeping soundly in beds of rose petals, surrounded by protective moonbeams, cradled by the loving attention of forces greater and more caring than they had ever dared to imagine. For others, it shows peaceful memories from their own lives, moments of contentment and joy that they may have forgotten in the rush of daily activity, experiences of love and safety that their souls can draw upon for strength and comfort in times of difficulty. Gretel finds herself moving closer to the pool without conscious decision, drawn by something deeper than curiosity, pulled by a recognition that this body of water contains answers to questions she's been asking without words, solutions to problems she's been carrying without fully understanding their nature. As she approaches the water's edge, she feels each step taking her not just closer to the pool, but deeper into a state of openness and receptivity, a condition of being that allows magic to work its gentle transformations without resistance or fear. She kneels at the pool's edge with movements that feel like a natural extension of prayer, her body assuming this posture of reverence without any conscious instruction, guided by some deeper wisdom that recognizes the appropriateness of humility in the presence of such profound peace. The crystallized silence that forms the pool's border feels warm beneath her knees, supported without being hard, substantial without being rigid, like kneeling on the solidified essence of every gentle word that has ever been spoken, every kind gesture that has ever been offered, every moment of compassion that has ever passed between one being and another. As she gazes into the perfectly still water, Gretel sees first her own reflection, but this is not the reflection that would appear in ordinary water or conventional mirrors. The image that looks back at her shows not just her physical features, but somehow also the state of her inner being, and what she sees fills her with a profound sense of peace and self-acceptance that she has never experienced before. The reflection shows her as she truly is beneath all the accumulated layers of worry and responsibility and daily concern, reveals the essential Gretel who exists beyond role and duty and external expectation, the pure being of light and love and infinite potential that forms her deepest nature. But even as she marvels at this revelation of her own inner beauty, the reflection begins to change, or perhaps the perception of it deepens, allowing her to see beyond the surface of the image into something even more wonderful and reassuring. The water begins to show her scenes of perfect rest and restoration, visions that feel more real than memory, more substantial than imagination, images that seem to be not just possibilities, but actual experiences waiting for her in some realm beyond ordinary time and space. She sees herself sleeping in a bed that seems to be woven from moonlight and starshine, surrounded by blankets so soft they appear to be made from crystallized contentment itself. Pillows that cradle her head with the perfect support that comes from understanding exactly what each individual's soul needs for complete comfort and restoration. In this vision, her breathing is deep and even, her face completely relaxed, all tension and worry dissolved away, leaving only the pure peace of someone who has finally found complete safety and unconditional love. The vision shifts and expands, showing her not just sleeping but dreaming, and the dreams she observes are unlike any she has ever experienced in ordinary sleep. These are dreams of fly without fear, of walking through gardens even more beautiful than the one where she now kneels, of conversations with beings of pure light who speak directly to her heart without need for words, sharing wisdom and love and encouragement that fill every empty space in her soul with golden warmth and absolute certainty that she is precious beyond measure, value beyond calculation, love beyond her ability to comprehend the full scope of that love. As she continues to gaze into the pool, other images begin to appear on its surface, floating like gentle clouds across the water, pictures of peace that seem to be drawn from some universal library of tranquility, scenes that speak to the deepest needs of her spirit for rest and restoration. She sees forests where every tree offers protection and comfort, meadows where every flower blooms with healing intention, streams where every drop of water carries blessings of purification and renewal. The wise woman moves to kneel beside her, and together they observe these visions of peace flowing across the water's surface, like a gentle movie made of light and love and infinite possibility. What you see, the wise woman explains, are not mere fantasies or wishful thinking, but actual experiences that exist in the realm of deep peace, states of being that become accessible when the soul learns to release its grip on worry and fear, and instead opens itself to receive the gifts that are always being offered by the universe's infinite love and compassion. As they watch together, the images in the pool begin to take on an even more magical quality, moving from static pictures to scenes of gentle motion, showing Gretel versions of herself moving through landscapes of perfect beauty with the fluid grace of someone who has learned to live in complete harmony with the rhythms of peace and rest. In these visions, she walks through gardens where every step brings her deeper into states of relaxation, sleeps in beds where every breath draws in healing and restoration, awakens each morning feeling more refreshed and renewed than she had ever imagined possible. The pool seems to understand exactly what aspects of peace and rest most appeal to Gretel's individual nature, what specific forms of comfort and safety her particular soul most craves, and provides visions perfectly tailored to her deepest needs and longings. The water shows her images of herself surrounded by protective light, held and embraced by forces of love so vast and unconditional that they dwarf any fear or worry she has ever carried, supported by a network of caring that extends infinitely in all directions, ensuring that she is never alone, never unprotected, never without access to the comfort and restoration her spirit requires. Gradually, the visions in the pool begin to slow their movement, the images becoming more and more still until they merge into a single picture of ultimate peace. Gretel herself, lying in perfect rest, her face radiant with contentment, her body completely relaxed, her spirit merged with the infinite ocean of tranquility that surrounds and sustains all beings who have learned to trust in the loving intelligence that guides all existence toward ever greater states of harmony and joy. Part 7, The Journey Home. With the wise woman's gentle blessing still resonating in her heart like the echo of a perfect bell, Gretel begins her journey back through the enchanted garden. But this return passage feels fundamentally different from her arrival. Transformed by the profound peace she has absorbed from the pool of peaceful dreams and the magical atmosphere that permeates every corner of this sacred space. Her footsteps now carry a different quality, moving with the unhurried grace of someone who has learned that arriving somewhere is far less important than the quality of presence she brings to each moment of the journey itself. The crystallized moonlight pathways beneath her feet seem to respond to this change in her being, becoming even softer and more luminous, as if the very ground recognizes that she now moves as one who has touched the deepest sources of tranquility and deserves to be supported by surfaces that match her newfound state of perfect calm. Each step creates tiny sparkles of light that follow in her wake like fallen stars choosing to dance rather than simply lie still, creating a gentle trail of illumination that marks her passage through the garden while never becoming bright enough to disturb the essential twilight peace that governs this magical realm. The flowers she passes seem to acknowledge her transformation with subtle movements that exist just at the edge of perception, petals turning slightly in her direction as if offering their own form of blessing, leaves rustling with sounds so gentle they might be whispered prayers or soft sighs of contentment. The moon blossoms release additional wisps of their dream-inducing mist as she walks by, creating gentle clouds of silver vapor that follow her like benevolent spirits, ensuring that with each breath she continues to absorb the essence of peaceful sleep that will carry her smoothly through transition from this magical realm back to the ordinary world. The sleep roses seem to understand that she no longer needs their active assistance in finding rest, for her entire being has become saturated with their gift of profound relaxation. But they continue to offer their fragrance as a form of blessing, an aromatic benediction that surrounds her with a scent of absolute safety and unconditional love. Their thorns of compassion catch the gentle light and throw tiny rainbows across her path, creating a carpet of color that shifts and changes with each step, transforming the simple act of walking into a moving meditation on beauty and wonder. The twilight lilies pulse in synchronized harmony as she moves past them, their purple radiance seeming to match the rhythm of her breathing, which has become deeper and more peaceful with each moment spent in this enchanted space. The light from these flowers no longer seems external to her, but rather appears to be emerging from within her own being, as if she has absorbed so much of their luminous peace that she has become a source of gentle illumination herself, carrying their gift of tranquility not just in her memory, but as an actual, physical transformation of her entire presence. As she walks through the rows of dream lavender, the evening breeze that moves through these magical plants carries her own essence along with their perfume, weaving her peaceful energy into the garden's atmosphere, so that future visitors will breathe not just the lavender's natural calming properties, but also some portion of the deep tranquility she has achieved through her communion with the pool of peaceful dreams. In this way, her journey becomes not just a personal experience of transformation, but a gift to all who will follow this path in search of their own healing and restoration. The path that leads away from the garden and back toward the cottage where the wise woman waits seems to understand that this portion of the journey requires a different kind of movement, a gradual transition from the intense magic of the garden's heart back to the gentler enchantment of human habitation. The crystallized moonlight becomes softer underfoot, less brilliant in its luminescence, guiding her slowly and carefully through states of consciousness that bridge the gap between the profound depths of peace she has experienced and the slightly more ordinary awareness that will allow her to continue her journey back through the forest. The wise woman appears beside the cottage as if she's been waiting there all along, though Gretel has no memory of her leaving the pool or walking back through the garden. Her presence brings with it the same sense of unconditional love and infinite patience that characterized their first meeting, but now there is an additional quality of recognition, as if she sees in Gretel not just a visitor who has experienced the garden's gifts, but someone who's been fundamentally transformed by that experience. Someone who now carries within herself a portion of the same wisdom and peace that the wise woman has been sharing with travelers for countless years. You carry the garden's blessing within you now, the wise woman says, her words flowing like liquid silver in the twilight air. Each syllable carries its own small payload of comfort and reassurance. The peace you have found here is not something that can be lost or forgotten, not a temporary respite that will fade when you return to the ordinary world, but rather a permanent addition to your being, a reservoir of tranquility that you can access whenever you need to remember what true rest feels like, what perfect safety means, what unconditional love provides to all who open themselves to receive it. Her words seem to sink into Gretel's consciousness like warm honey, settling in places she did not know existed, creating new pathways of understanding and acceptance that will allow her to carry this experience forward into whatever challenges or joys await her in the days and years to come. The wise woman's blessing feels like both completion of this magical encounter and the beginning of something even more profound, a lifetime of deeper peace that will flow from this moment of perfect connection with the sources of all healing and restoration. As Gretel begins to move away from the cottage and back toward the forest path that will carry her home, she feels the garden's influence beginning to integrate more fully into her being, no longer existing as something external that she's experiencing, but rather becoming an integral part of who she is, a transformation so complete and natural that it seems as if this peaceful, loving version of herself was who she had always been, merely waiting for the right circumstances to emerge into full expression. The fireflies that had guided her deeper into the forest now appear again to accompany her return journey, but their light seems different now, less like external illumination and more like reflections of the gentle radiance that has begun to emanate from her own being. They dance around her in patterns that seem to celebrate her transformation, their movements creating flowing mandalas of light that honor both the journey she has completed and the new journey that begins with each step away from a magical garden and back toward a world of ordinary human activity. The forest path that had seemed so enchanting during her approach to the wise woman's cottage now reveals itself to be even more magical during her departure, for her transformed perception allows her to see layers of beauty and meaning that were invisible to her earlier state of consciousness. Every tree seems to nod in recognition of her new state of being. Every flower seems to turn in acknowledgement of the peace she carries. Every small creature that moves through the undergrowth seems to pause and honor the blessing she has received and now radiates into the forest atmosphere. The ancient oaks that stand as sentinels along the path seem to offer their own form of protection, their massive branches creating a canopy that filters the gentle forest light into patterns that match the rhythm of her breathing, their presence providing a sense of stability and endurance that reassures her that the transformation she has experienced is not fragile or temporary, but rather as solid and lasting as these trees that have witnessed centuries of seasons and remain constant in their protective vigil. The moss beneath her feet seems to understand that she now walks with a different quality of presence, becoming even softer and more supportive, creating a surface that feels like walking on compressed dreams, on solidified wishes for comfort and ease. Each step sinks slightly into this magical ground covering, and each footprint she leaves behind seems to glow for a moment before fading, as if the very earth were acknowledging her passage and blessing the path for future travelers who will follow in her footsteps. The gentle downward slope of the path that carried her deeper into the forest's magical heart now reverses itself, leading her gradually upward and outward. But this ascent feels effortless, as if gravity itself has been transformed by her experience into a force that supports rather than challenges, that lifts rather than pulls down. Her body moves with a fluid grace that seems to belong more to the realm of dreams than ordinary physical existence, each gesture flowing seamlessly into the next, each breath drawing in not just air, but continued infusions of the peace that now forms the core of her being. As the forest begins to thin and the warm lights of the village become visible through the trees, Gretel realizes that this transition from magical realm to ordinary world is happening so gradually and naturally that there is no sense of loss or diminishment, no feeling of leaving something precious behind. Instead, the peace she has found seems to be expanding rather than contracting, growing stronger rather than weaker, as if the very act of carrying this gift back into the world of daily life were actually enhancing its power and deepening its influence on her entire existence. Part 8, the cozy return. Gretel emerges from the forest's protective embrace to find the village transformed by her own transformation, as if the profound peace she has absorbed from the magical garden has somehow altered her perception so completely that everything familiar now appears suffused with new layers of beauty and meaning that were previously invisible to her ordinary awareness. The cobblestone streets that she has walked countless times before now seem to glow with their own gentle luminescence, each stone polished to perfection by centuries of loving footsteps, creating pathways that feel less like mere roads and more like rivers of crystallized contentment flowing between buildings that pulse with the warm life of their inhabitants. The houses along her route home seem to lean slightly toward her as she passes, their walls breathing with the same peaceful rhythm that now governs her own heartbeat, their windows glowing with honey-colored light that feels like visual music, like the sight of laughter or the appearance of joy made manifest in the physical world. Each dwelling radiates its own unique frequency of comfort and safety, and as she walks past them, she can sense the peaceful dreams of their sleeping occupants, feel the gentle waves of contentment that flow from every bedroom where tired bodies rest in beds that cradle them with the perfect tenderness that comes from being completely at home in the world. Her own cottage stands at the end of the small lane that curves away from the main village paths, and as she approaches it, she realizes that this simple dwelling has been transformed by her absence into something far more beautiful and welcoming than she had ever noticed before. Perhaps it was always this lovely, she thinks, and she simply lacked the eyes to see its true nature until this moment, until her consciousness had been purified and expanded by her encounter with the deeper mysteries of peace and restoration that dwell in the forest's heart. The cottage walls seemed to glow with their own soft radiance, as if the very stones and timber from which they were constructed have absorbed decades of happy moments, years of contentment, centuries of peaceful nights spent in safety and comfort, and now they radiate this accumulated blessing back into the world as a gift to anyone whose perception has been refined enough to detect such subtle emanations of joy and tranquility. The roof appears to be covered not just with ordinary thatch, but with some material that shifts between brown and gold and silver depending on the angle of observation, creating a surface that seems to capture and reflect the gentle light of stars and moon while simultaneously generating its own luminous warmth. The garden that surrounds her cottage has been transformed as well, or perhaps revealed in its true nature for the first time. The herbs she planted for culinary purposes now reveal themselves to be magical plants in their own right, each one glowing with the accumulated intention of every meal prepared with love, every dish seasoned with care and attention to the nourishment of both body and soul. The lavender she grows for its fragrance now appears to be a cousin of the dream lavender she encountered in the wise woman's garden, its purple flowers pulsing with their own gentle light, its fragrance carrying subtle notes of comfort and restoration that she had never detected before, but which now seem as obvious as the scent itself. The rose bushes that climb the cottage walls show themselves to be distant relatives of the magical sleep roses, their blooms softer than she had ever realized, their fragrance deeper and more complex, carrying within it layers of peace and contentment that seem to increase rather than diminish as evening deepens into night. Even the simple daisies that grow in cheerful profusion around the cottage's foundation reveal themselves to possess their own quiet magic, their white petals seeming to glow with captured moonlight, their yellow centers pulsing with the concentrated essence of every sunny moment that has ever brought joy to the human heart. As she approaches her front door, Gretel notices that her hand moves to the latch with a quality of reverence she has never brought to this simple daily action before, as if opening the door to her own home has become a sacred ritual, and acknowledging the profound blessing of having a place of safety and comfort to which she can return after any journey, no matter how magical or transformative. The door seems to understand this new quality of attention, opening with a soft whisper welcome that carries with it the accumulated warmth of every time she has ever crossed this threshold seeking rest and restoration. The interior of her cottage has undergone the same magical transformation as everything else she encounters, revealing itself to be not just a simple dwelling, but a sanctuary perfectly calibrated to support and enhance the peace she has discovered in the forest. The air inside feels different, thicker with comfort, more luminous with safety, as if the very atmosphere has absorbed her new state of being and adjusted itself to match her transformed consciousness, creating an environment that will help her maintain and deepen the tranquility she has achieved rather than allowing it to dissipate in the face of ordinary concerns and daily activities. Her furniture appears exactly as she left it, yet somehow each piece now reveals qualities of beauty and comfort that she had never fully appreciated before. The chair by the fireplace seems to have been carved not just from wood, but from crystallized contentment, its curves perfectly designed to cradle her body in positions that promote the deepest possible relaxation. The table where she takes her meals now appears to be made from compressed sunshine and solidified laughter, its surface gleaming with a warm radiance that makes every object placed upon it seem more beautiful, more valuable, more worthy of gratitude and appreciation. The fireplace itself has been transformed into something far beyond an ordinary source of warmth, revealing itself to be a portal to the same realm of magical fire that she witnessed in the wise woman's cottage. The flames that dance among the logs seem to be made not of ordinary combustion, but of crystallized joy and liquefied peace, their light casting no harsh shadows, but rather filling the entire room with a golden glow that soothes the eyes and calms the spirit, their warmth penetrating not just the air, but the very essence of anyone who sits within their influence. But it is her bedroom that shows the most remarkable transformation, for here she discovers that her simple bed has become something worthy of the most magical fairy tale ever told. The mattress appears to have been woven from clouds and moonbeams, from the softest sighs of contentment and the gentlest whispers of love, creating a surface that promises not just physical comfort, but the kind of rest that heals the soul and restores the spirit to its most pristine state of peace and joy. The pillows have been transformed into repositories of every gentle dream that has ever brought comfort to a troubled sleeper, their covers woven from silk so fine it seems to be made of materialized tenderness, their stuffing composed of the concentrated essence of every lullaby that has ever soothed a restless mind into peaceful slumber. When she places her head upon these pillows, she knows that her dreams will be filled with visions of beauty and peace, with experiences of love and safety that will nourish her spirit through the night and leave her awakening refreshed not just in body, but in every aspect of her being. The blankets that cover her bed appear to be woven from captured starlight and compressed serenity, materials so soft and warm that they seem to embrace her before she has even slipped beneath their protective coverage. These are not ordinary blankets, but magical coverings that adjust their warmth and weight to provide exactly the degree of comfort and security that her individual body and spirit require, that seem to understand her needs better than she understands them herself, that offer not just physical protection from cold, but emotional protection from any lingering traces of worry or fear that might attempt to disturb her rest. As she prepares for sleep, moving through her nightly routines with the slow, deliberate grace that has become natural to her since her encounter with the magical garden, Gretel realizes that every simple action has been transformed into a form of meditation. Every small task has become an opportunity to deepen and extend the peace that now forms the foundation of her existence. Washing her face becomes a ritual of purification that cleanses not just skin but spirit. Brushing her hair becomes a meditation on beauty and self-care that honors the temple of her body. Changing into her night clothes becomes a ceremonial transition that marks her passage from the activity of day into the restoration of night. The very air in her bedroom seems to have been infused with the same magical properties that characterize the atmosphere of the wise woman's garden, carrying with it subtle fragrances that change according to her needs, sometimes bringing the scent of lavender for deep relaxation, sometimes offering the perfume of roses for comfort and love, sometimes providing the clean freshness of morning air for clarity and peace, but always surrounding her with exactly the aromatic environment that will best support her journey into restorative sleep. As she finally slips between the sheets that feel like liquid silk against her skin, Gretel experiences a profound sense of homecoming that goes far beyond the simple pleasure of returning to familiar surroundings. She has come home not just to her cottage and her village and her ordinary life, but to a version of herself that she had never fully inhabited before, a self that exists in permanent contact with the sources of peace and joy that she discovered in the magical garden, a self that carries within its very being capacity to transform any environment into a sanctuary of tranquility and love. Part 9. The Drifting into Dreams. As Gretel settles into her transformed bed, her body sinking into layers of comfort that seem to have no bottom, no final resting place except perfect, infinite softness, she feels herself beginning the most natural transition in the world, the gentle passage from waking consciousness into the realm of dreams where healing happens without effort and restoration occurs as naturally as breathing. The magical peace she has absorbed from her journey through the enchanted forest and her communion with the pool of peaceful dreams now begins to work its deepest magic, not through any external force or foreign influence, but through the simple process of allowing her consciousness to settle into its most natural state of rest and renewal. Her breathing, which has been deepening steadily throughout her evening journey, now finds its perfect rhythm. Each inhalation drawing in not just the gentle air of her transformed bedroom, but also invisible streams of tranquility that flow from every object, every surface, every molecule of the atmosphere that surrounds her resting body. Each exhalation releases not just the day's accumulated tension, but also any remaining fragments of urgency or concern, any lingering traces of the busy, effortful consciousness that belongs to the waking world, but has no place in the realm of dreams where she now prepares to travel. The blankets that cover her seem to possess their own intelligence, adjusting their weight and warmth to provide exactly the degree of comfort her body requires as it moves through the various stages of relaxation that precede deep sleep. They grow heavier as her muscles release their grip on wakefulness, providing the comforting pressure that signals to her nervous system that it is safe to let go completely, safe to surrender to the restoration that can only occur when conscious control is relinquished and the body's natural wisdom is allowed to guide the healing process. The pillows beneath her head seem to understand the specific contours of her skull, the exact angle her neck requires for optimal comfort, the precise degree of support that will allow her head to rest completely without any unconscious effort to maintain position or prevent discomfort. They cradle her with the perfect tenderness of a mother's hands, providing not just physical support but emotional comfort, the deep reassurance that comes from being held with infinite care and unconditional love. As her body settles deeper into this perfect nest of comfort and safety, Gretel's consciousness begins to experience the subtle shifts that mark the transition from ordinary awareness into the magical realm of dreams. The boundaries between self and surroundings begin to soften and blur, as if the peace she has absorbed has dissolved the artificial barriers that normally separate her individual awareness from the larger ocean of tranquility in which all consciousness ultimately rests and from which all individual awareness emerges like gentle waves on an infinite sea of perfect calm. The sounds of the night, which had been distinct and separate during her waking moments, now begin to blend into a symphony of peace that seems to arise not from external sources, but from the very fabric of existence itself. The distant whisper of wind through trees, the soft settling of her cottage walls, the gentle rhythm of her own breathing, all merge into a single, complex harmony that carries her consciousness deeper and deeper into states of rest that exist beyond the reach of ordinary sleep, beyond the shallow dreams of busy minds, into profound depths where souls commune with the sources of all peace and restoration. The light in her room, which had been soft and golden during her preparations for sleep, now begins to dim with such gradual gentleness that the transition is barely perceptible, each moment bringing a slightly softer illumination, a marginally deeper twilight, until she exists in a state of luminous darkness that is neither bright nor dim, but somehow both simultaneously. A quality of light that belongs only to the borderland between waking and sleeping, between conscious thought and the deeper awareness that governs dreams. In this gentle twilight, the wise woman's garden flowers seem to release their essence into the very air of Gretel's bedroom, though she has traveled far from that magical place and returned to her own simple cottage. The moon blossoms pour their dream-inducing mist through invisible channels that connect all places of peace, creating an atmosphere that transforms her ordinary sleeping space into an extension of that magical garden where perfect rest is not just possible but inevitable. The sleep roses release their fragrance across dimensions of space that exist only in the realm of consciousness, surrounding her with the scent of absolute safety and unconditional love. Their perfume carrying with it the promise that her dreams will be filled with visions of beauty and wonder. with experiences of joy and contentment that will nourish her soul through the night and leave her awakening with a sense of having been blessed by forces greater and more loving than she had ever dared to imagine. The twilight lilies pulse their purple radiance through wavelengths of light that penetrate not just her bedroom, but the very essence of her being. Their gentle illumination creating patterns of peaceful energy that flow through her consciousness like visual lullabies, like the sight of music or the appearance of harmony made manifest in the realm of inner experience. As these magical influences blend and merge in the atmosphere around her resting body, Gretel feels herself beginning to float, not physically, but in some deeper dimension of existence, as if the accumulated peace of her evening journey has transformed her into a being of such lightness and transparency that she is no longer bound by the ordinary laws that govern physical existence. She drifts like a feather on the gentlest possible breeze, like a cloud moving across an endless sky of perfect blue, like a note of music floating through air that has been purified of everything except love and beauty and infinite compassion. Her thoughts, which have been following the logical patterns of waking consciousness, now begin to dissolve into something far more fluid and beautiful. Streams of awareness that flow like liquid light through landscapes of impossible beauty, carrying her deeper and deeper into realms where different laws apply, where kindness is the only reality, where every experience is designed to bring healing and joy and the deepest possible restoration to any soul fortunate enough to enter these sacred precincts. The boundary between her individual awareness and the larger consciousness that encompasses all beings begins to dissolve completely, allowing her to experience herself not just as Gretel the baker, not just as a single person living in a particular village, but as part of something infinitely larger and more beautiful, a note in a symphony of peace that includes every sleeping soul, every resting creature, every moment of tranquility that has ever existed or ever will exist in any realm of being. In this state of expanded awareness, she begins to perceive dreams not as private experiences that belong to her alone, but as shared visions that connect her to every other being who has ever sought peace, ever yearned for rest, ever opened themselves to receive the healing that flows eternally from the sources of all love and compassion. Her dreams become doorways not just to her own restoration, but to participation in the universal process of healing that never ceases, that flows like an infinite river through all dimensions of existence, bringing renewal and blessing to every corner of creation. The wise woman's presence seems to materialize in her consciousness one final time, not as a separate being offering guidance from outside herself, but as a quality of wisdom and compassion that has become permanently integrated into her own awareness, a voice of gentle encouragement that will remain with her always, a source of comfort and strength that no external circumstance can ever diminish or destroy. And as this final blessing settles into the deepest levels of her being, Gretel feels herself surrendering completely to the most natural process in existence, the nightly journey into dreams where souls are restored, where hearts are healed, where the accumulated fatigue and worry of daily life are dissolved in the infinite ocean of peace that surrounds and sustains all existence, forever and always, world without end. The last conscious thought that drifts through her awareness is not really a thought at all, but rather a feeling of infinite gratitude for the gift of this perfect rest, this complete safety, this absolute love that cradles her now and will continue to cradle her through all the hours of healing sleep that stretch ahead, carrying her deeper and deeper into the realm where dreams are born and where every dream that arises serves the single purpose of bringing greater peace, greater joy, greater love into a world that hungers always for these gifts of the Spirit. Her breathing becomes so slow and gentle that it seems to merge with the breathing of the earth itself, with a vast respiration of existence that draws in light and releases blessing, that inhales love and exhales peace, that sustains all life through the simple, miraculous process of being present to the infinite goodness that forms the foundation of everything that has ever been, everything that will ever be in any realm of existence. And in this perfect unity with the source of all peace, all healing, all love, Gretel drifts into the deepest, most restorative sleep that any soul can experience, surrounded by protection that never fails, cradled by love that never diminishes, sustained by peace that never ends, carried through the night on waves of blessing that will refresh and renew every aspect of her being, preparing her to awaken as a gift of joy to the world, a bearer of the light she has received, a living reminder that peace is always possible for any heart willing to open itself to receive the infinite love that flows eternally through all existence, forever and always.